In today's world, most of our political discussions are arguments about who should hold power. The right person, the right party, the right ideology, the right experts. But the story of The Lord of the Rings asks a much deeper question and a more dangerous question. What if the problem is not only who holds the ring? What if the problem is the ring? That to me is one of the great insights buried inside Tolkien's story. And I don't mean buried because it's hidden. In a lot of ways, it's right there on the surface. The ring is power, but not just power in an abstract general sense. It's not just strength or influence. It's not just the ability to do things in the world. The ring is power as domination. It's power over the will of others, the power to command, control, and rule through physical might. And that is why The Lord of the Rings remains one of the most powerful stories ever told about political power, which is the power to direct the centralized physical might of the military and the police force. Now, Tolkien famously disliked allegory. He didn't want people reducing his story to a simple code where this thing equals that thing, and this character equals that historical figure, this country equals that country. And that's important because The Lord of the Rings is not a simple political allegory. The ring is not just one government. Sauron is not just one dictator. Mordor is not one country. But Tolkien did believe in the applicability of the story. A great story doesn't have to be a one-to-one allegory in order to reveal something true about the world. And few stories are more applicable to political power than The Lord of the Rings. Because the central moral question of the story is not simply how do we defeat evil? It's can we defeat evil by using the methods of evil? Can we use domination to end domination? Can we use coercion to create freedom? Can we seize the ring in order to save the world? And Tolkien's answer is devastating. No, the ring cannot be used for good. But not because the wrong people want it, but because of what it is. That's the whole story. The ring must be destroyed, not captured, not placed under wiser supervision, not handed to a better ruler, destroyed. And that is where the story becomes almost unbearably relevant to our world. Because our world is full of people who believe that the ring is dangerous in the hands of their enemies, but safe in their own hands. The left believes that the ring is dangerous in the hands of the right. The right believes that the ring is dangerous in the hands of the left. Everyday people believe the ring is dangerous in the hands of the elites. The elites believe that the ring is dangerous in the hands of everyday people. The revolutionaries believe that the ring is dangerous in the hands of the old regime. And the old regime believes that the ring is dangerous in the hands of the revolutionaries. Almost everybody can see the danger of power when somebody else is holding it. And almost no one concludes that the thing itself should be destroyed. Most people only conclude it should not be in their hands. It should be in ours. And that's the temptation of the ring. And it is not a childish temptation. It's not usually the temptation to be obviously evil. The ring doesn't come to people and say, become a monster. It says, save your people, defeat your enemies, right the wrongs, bring order to chaos, use me just this once. That's what makes the ring so dangerous. It tempts good people with the possibility of doing good through domination. And that is political power in its most seductive form. Not naked cruelty or open hatred or cartoon villainy. Righteous control, violence with a moral vocabulary, coercion with a noble purpose. The belief that if the goal is good enough, then overriding the agency of other people can be redeemed. We see this throughout The Lord of the Rings. Boromir does not want the ring because he wants to burn villages and enslave innocent people. He wants to save Gondor. His city is under threat. His people are dying. His father is losing hope. The shadow of Mordor is growing. And Boromir looks at the ring and he sees a weapon that could be used against the enemy. From his point of view, refusing to use it probably seems insane. Why would you not use the greatest weapon available against the greatest evil in the world? Why would you send it away with a hobbit? Why trust weakness when strength is available? That's Boromir's logic. And that's a big part of the logic of modern politics. That's the logic of emergency. It's the logic of war. That's the logic of every regime that says, these are dangerous times. We can't afford restraint. We can't afford to have principles. We can't afford to have freedom. Not right now. First, we have to win. Then we can be good. But the ring does not work that way. You don't use it and then walk away unchanged. You do not dominate others and remain untouched by the act of domination. As the widely famous and almost overused quote by Lord Acton goes, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. You don't wield coercive power and remain pure because your intentions were noble. This is the lie, and Boromir believes the lie. For a moment, he believes that the ring can save his people, but the ring is already changing him. It's turning his love into possession, his courage into aggression, his duty into entitlement. And that's one of the deepest political lessons in the story. Power does not merely give expression to the person who holds it. Power reshapes the person who holds it. This is why Gandalf refuses the ring. And Gandalf's refusal may be the most important refusal in the entire story. Because if anyone could be trusted with power, wouldn't it be Gandalf? He's wise, compassionate, he understands evil, he wants to protect the free peoples of Middle-earth. He doesn't want the ring for selfish pleasure. He doesn't want a palace or tributes or to be worshipped. And yet he refuses the ring. Why? Because he knows that the danger is not simply bad intentions. The danger is what the ring would do through his good intentions. He says that through him, the ring would wield a power too great and terrible to imagine. That is the nightmare. Not evil holding evil power, but good trying to use evil power for good. Because when good people gain the power to dominate, they don't stop being moral. They become moral tyrants. They don't say, I'm crushing you because I hate you. They say, I'm crushing you because I know what is best. I'm crushing you because the future depends on it, because peace requires it. I'm crushing you because the world must be saved. That is the terrifying version of Gandalf with the ring. Not a petty villain, but an all-powerful savior. A ruler who would do good by force until goodness itself became indistinguishable from obedience. And then there's Galadriel. Her temptation is different. It's mystical, almost holy. When Frodo offers her the ring, she imagines what she could become. Not dark, but beautiful. Not despised, but adored. All shall love her and despair. That line matters because domination does not always appear as brutality. Sometimes it appears as beauty. Sometimes tyranny comes dressed as compassion. Sometimes control feels like healing. Sometimes people surrender their freedom not because they're beaten down, but because they're enchanted. They want a beautiful, wise ruler. And Galadriel sees that possibility in herself, and she refuses it. She passes the test. She diminishes. She chooses not to become the thing that she could become. That is quite a countercultural idea. Our world typically does not admire people for refusing power. Our world admires people for gaining power and for using power. Our myths are often conquest myths. Our politics is almost always a contest over who gets to command everybody else. But the Lord of the Rings, in its deepest sense, is a renunciation myth. The heroes are not trying to gain the ultimate weapon. They have it. They're trying to destroy it. The Fellowship is not formed to capture Mordor's machinery and use it more wisely. It's not formed to install a more enlightened ruler over the system of domination, to put better management in charge of the tower. The Fellowship exists to carry the ring into the fire. And that is extraordinary because it means that the solution to evil power is not better power. The solution is the destruction of the instrument of domination. Now, that's a hard idea. And I don't want to flatten Tolkien into a simplistic political slogan because Middle-earth still has kingdoms. Aragorn becomes king. There's hierarchies and loyalties and duties, traditions and authority. There's all of that. So this isn't a crude claim that Tolkien was writing a modern anti-government manifesto. The deeper point is not that all order is evil. The deeper point is that domination is not redeemed by the goodness of the dominator. There's a difference between authority and domination. There's a difference between protection and control. There's a difference between voluntary cooperation and loyalty and compelled obedience. And in our world, political narratives are constantly blurring these distinctions. We call coercion against peaceful people policy. We call obedience unity. We call surveillance safety. Censorship responsibility. Domination is called progress. And because the words sound noble, we forget what is actually happening when the political sphere extends beyond the function of restraining violent actors. One human being is being given power over another. One group is being authorized to compel another using the law backed by the police force. One vision of the good is being armed. That is the ring, the power to make others obey through force. And it seems that in every age, there are people who believe that they finally found the right reason to use it. This is why the ring has to be carried by hobbits. That may be one of Tolkien's greatest insights. The ring is not entrusted to the greatest warrior, not to the wisest wizard, not to the rightful king. It's carried by the least imperial creatures in Middle-earth, hobbits. They don't dream of conquest and they're not obsessed with glory. They don't want to rule nations or remake the world. They want gardens and songs, food, friendship, and a warm fire. And that is not trivial. That's wisdom. The hobbits are not powerful because they're grand. They're powerful because their desires are small enough to remain human. The ring has less to work with. Not nothing. Frodo's not immune. Bilbo's not immune. Neither is Sam. Nobody is immune. But hobbits reveal something profound. The people that are most able to resist domination are often those who are least interested in ruling. The people most worthy of trust are often those who don't seek to command. Civilization is not saved by those who want to control the world. It's saved by those who want to live peacefully within it. That's the moral beauty of the Shire. The Shire isn't paradise. It's not sophisticated. It's not heroic in the usual sense. But it represents ordinary life outside the dreams of empire. And ordinary life matters. A garden matters. A song matters. A meal with friends matters. A person living freely, peacefully, and quietly matters so much. In fact, maybe that's what all the great struggles are supposed to protect. Not some abstract glory, not national greatness or the ambitions of political officials, but the ability of ordinary people to live their lives without being swallowed by somebody else's will. And that's why the ring is such a threat. It doesn't just threaten armies, it threatens the possibility of ordinary life. It threatens the small free spaces where people belong to themselves. And this is where the story again becomes painfully relevant, because the actors in the political sphere are always promising to save the Shire. But politics often saves the Shire by becoming Mordor. It says, we have to centralize power to protect peace. We need to control speech in order to protect truth. We need to monitor people to guarantee safety. We need to take more in order to provide more. And every step can sound reasonable on its own. Every step can be proposed as a temporary measure. And every step can be defended and seen as necessary. Until one day, using the machinery of domination as a tool to manage society has become normal. And everybody's arguing not about whether the ring should exist, but about who should wear it. The ring is not just the power of evil people to do evil things. That's obvious. The ring is the temptation of good people to use evil things for good ends. And that's the part that we have a hard time facing, because almost all of us believe in some version of the ring. We may not want total power, but we want enough power to stop the people that we fear, to force the changes that we believe are necessary. We want enough power to ensure that the wrong people can't win, enough power to finally fix the problems that we see in the world. And that desire is understandable. The world is full of real suffering, real injustice, cruelty, danger. Boromir is not wrong that Gondor is in danger. Gandalf is not wrong to care about the people of Middle-earth. Galadriel is not wrong to imagine that she could do great things. And that's what makes the story morally serious. The temptation is so powerful because the problems are real. If the problems were imaginary or trivial, then the ring would be easy to reject. But the problems are not imaginary or trivial. Suffering does exist. Danger exists. Chaos exists. People need protection. And still, the ring cannot be used. That's the hard teaching. The existence of suffering and challenges does not automatically justify the use of domination. The urgency of a problem does not transform coercion into goodness. Some tools change the user. Some tools corrupt the goal. Some tools cannot build the world that they promise. And this isn't merely a fantasy lesson. It's one of the central lessons of human history. Again and again, people have tried to use centralized physical force to remake society. And again, that power does what the ring does. It grows, it attracts servants, demands loyalty. It justifies itself. It makes restraint look irresponsible. It makes dissenters look dangerous. It turns enemies into monsters and citizens into subjects. And eventually, the original noble purpose becomes almost irrelevant. The machinery remains. The ring wants to be worn. That is why the most important moral act in The Lord of the Rings is not conquest, it's refusal. Gandalf refuses. Galadriel refuses. Aragorn doesn't claim it. Faramir, unlike Boromir, refuses it. Sam gives it back. And Frodo carries it not because he can master it, but because somebody must bear the burden of getting rid of it. But then Tolkien goes even deeper, because at the end, Frodo fails. At the very edge of the fire, after all the suffering, after all the sacrifice, after carrying the ring farther than anyone could have ever expected, Frodo cannot throw it in. He claims it. He says the ring is his. And that moment is crucial because it prevents us from turning Frodo into a moral superhero. Even Frodo cannot simply overcome the ring by being good enough. Even the humble bearer breaks. That means the danger of dominating power is not limited to the obviously corrupt or weak of character. It reaches into everyone. Nobody is safe. Nobody is pure enough or wise enough or strong enough. Not Boromir, not Gandalf, not Galadriel, not Frodo, not us. The ring is finally destroyed through something stranger than heroic willpower. It's destroyed through weakness, through failure, through mercy, through the earlier decision to spare Gollum's life, through events that nobody fully controls. That's really important because it suggests that domination is not defeated by becoming dominant enough to master it. It's defeated by humility, by mercy, by restraint, by the refusal to make control into a god. And maybe that is the political wisdom that we most need right now. Not another plan for better rulers, not another fantasy of perfect control, not another promise that this time the ring will be used correctly. Maybe we need to recover the ability to ask a question that very few political movements want to ask. What forms of power should no one have? Not our enemies, not our allies, not the brilliant or the compassionate or the experts, not the majority, no one. Because again, the great danger is not only that bad people seek power. The great danger is that good people seek it and they believe that their goodness will protect them from what power is. That's the myth of the ring. And that's the myth that our world keeps reenacting with every election, every war, emergency, revolution, and every movement that says, give us the power first, then we'll set things right. But Tolkien's story whispers something older, something humbler, and something more radical. The world is not saved because the ring is finally placed in the right hands. The world is saved because the ring is unmade. That's the lesson. And perhaps it's also an invitation to stop asking only who should rule and begin asking why so much of life must be ruled at all. To stop imagining freedom as the victory of our side's power and begin imagining freedom as the fading of domination itself. And begin building a world where fewer and fewer people are able to impose their will by force. Because the ring survives in every age. Not because everyone wants to be Sauron, but because almost everyone can imagine themselves as Gandalf. And that's why the story still matters. If we cannot see that temptation in ourselves, we will never understand why the ring is so dangerous. So the next time we argue about political power, maybe we should remember the question at the heart of Tolkien's myth. Not simply who should wield the ring, but what would it take for us to finally let it go?